Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. May the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace. Peace, peace be unto thee, unto us, and to all your beloved beings everywhere. O dearly beloved, make it so. Hari Om Tat Sat. Well, welcome everyone to our Tuesday evening reading and discussion of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. As has been said, a document unique in the annals of the world scriptures, the very words said by an incarnation of God, if we are to believe that that was the case with Sri Ramakrishna, certainly as M and many of his other direct disciples believed. Now this Sunday, we will talk about Kalpataru Day, the day in which there was this immense self-revelation of Sri Ramakrishna, in which he gave illumination to many of his direct householder disciples. So that will be the subject this coming Sunday, Kalpataru. So before we go ahead, is there anything from anyone that wants a nod from you, a comment, a concern, a question? Please be forthright. That's what being in a class means. If you can manage it, to share with your with the holy company that has come to make this experience one's own. Anything at all from me? All right, dear.
Okay. Sure, Brother Shankara. Good evening and namaste, everybody. We are on page 122 on PDF. So the book can be very close. And the topic would be futility of mere lecturing. That's the topic, page 122. What can you achieve by mere lecturing and scholarship without discrimination and dispassion? God alone is real and all else is unreal. God alone is substance and all else is non-entity. That is discrimination. First of all, set up God in the shrine of your heart and then deliver lectures much as you like. How will the mere repetition of Brahma profit you if you are not imbued with discrimination and dispassion? It is the empty sound of a conch shell. There lived in a village a young man named Padmalochan. People used to call him Podo for short. In this village, there was a temple in a very dilapidated condition. It contained no image of God. Ashwatha and other plants sprang up on the ruins of its walls. Bats lived inside, and the floor was covered with the dust and the droppings of the bats. The people of the village had stopped visiting the temple. One day after dusk, the villagers heard the sound of a conch shell from the direction of the temple. They thought perhaps someone had installed an image in the shrine and was performing the evening worship. One of them softly opened the door and saw Padmalochan standing in a corner, blowing the conch. No image had been set up. The temple hadn't been swept or washed, and filth and dirt everywhere. Filth and dirt lay everywhere. Then he shouted to Podo, "You have set up no image here within the shrine. O fool, blowing the conch, you simply make confusion worse confounded." Day and night, 11 bats scream there incessantly. Next, purification of mind. There is no use in merely making a noise if you want to establish the deity in the shrine of your heart, if you want to realize God. First of all, purify the mind. In the pure heart, God takes his seat. One cannot bring the holy image into the temple if the droppings of bats are all around. The 11 bats are our 11 organs, 5 of action, 5 of perception, and the mind. First of all, invoke the deity and then give lectures to your content. First of all, dive deep, plunge to the bottom and gather up the gems. Then you may do other things. But nobody wants to plunge. People are without spiritual discipline and prayer, without renunciation and dispassion. They learn a few words and immediately start to deliver lectures. It's difficult to teach others. Only if a man gets a command from God, after realizing him, is he entitled to teach. Thus conversing, the master came to the west end of the veranda. M stood by his side. Sri Ramakrishna had repeated again and again that God cannot be realized without discrimination and renunciation. This made M extremely worried. He had married and was then a young man of 28, educated in college in the Western way. Having a sense of duty, he asked himself, do discrimination and dispassion mean giving up woman and gold? He was really at a loss to know what to do. M to the master, what should one do if one's wife says, "You're neglecting me, I shall commit suicide"? Master, in a serious tone, give up such a wife if she proves an obstacle in the way of spiritual life. Let her commit suicide or anything else she likes. The wife that hampers her husband's spiritual life is an ungodly wife. Immersed in thought, M stood leaning against the wall. Narendra and the other devotees remained silent a few minutes. The master exchanged several words with them. Then suddenly going to M, he whispered in his ear, but if a man has sincere love for God, then all come under his control. The king, wicked persons, and his wife. Sincere love of God on the husband's part may eventually help the wife to lead a spiritual life. If the husband is good, then through the grace of God, the wife may also follow his example. This had a most soothing effect on M's worried mind. All the while he had been thinking, let her commit suicide, what can I do? M to the master, this world is a terrible place indeed. Master to the devotees, that is the reason Chaitanya said to his companion Nityananda, listen, brother, There's no hope of salvation for the worldly minded. On another occasion, the master had said to M privately, yes, there is no hope for a worldly man if he is not sincerely devoted to God. But he has nothing to fear if he remains in the world after realizing God. Nor need a man have any fear whatever of the world if he attains sincere devotion by practicing spiritual discipline now and then in solitude. Chaitanya had several householders among his devotees, but they were householders in name only, for they lived unattached to the world. It was known the worship was over and food offerings had been made in the temple. The doors of the temple were shut. Sri Ramakrishna sat down for his meal, and Narendra and the other devotees partook of the food offerings from the temple. Sunday, October 22nd, 1882. It was the day of Vijaya, the last day of the celebration of the worship of Durga, when the clay image is immersed in the water of a lake or river. About 9 o'clock in the morning, M was seated on the floor of the master's room at Dakshineshwar, near Sri Ramakrishna, who was reclining on the small couch. Rakhal was then living with the master. And Narendra and Bhavanand visited him frequently. Baburam had seen him only once or twice. Master, did you have any holiday during the Durga Puja? Yeah, yes, sir. I went to Keshav's house every day for the first 3 days of the worship. M, I heard there a very interesting interpretation of the Durga Puja. Master, please tell me all about it. M. Keshav Sen held daily morning prayers in his house, lasting till 10 or 11. During these prayers, he gave the inner meaning of the Durga Puja. He said that if anyone could realize the Divine Mother, that is to say, would install Mother Durga in the shrine of his heart, then Lakshmi, Saraswati, Kartika, and Ganesha would come there of themselves. Lakshmi means wealth, Saraswati knowledge, Kartika strength, and Ganesha success. By realizing the Divine Mother within one's heart, one gets all this without any effort whatever. Master, is that so? Sri Ramakrishna listened to the description, questioning him now and then about the prayers conducted by Keshav. At last he said to him, don't go hither and thither. Come here alone. Those who belong to the inner circle of my devotees will come only here. Boys like Narendra, Bhavanand, and Rakhal are my very intimate disciples. They are not to be thought lightly of. Feed them one day. What do you think of Narendra? M. I think very highly of him, sir. Narendra's many virtues. Master says, haven't you observed his many virtues? He is not only well versed in music, vocal and instrumental, but he is also very learned. Besides, he has controlled his passions and declares he will lead a celibate life. He has been devoted to God since his very boyhood. Brother Shankara, any comments? We're going into the meditation on God with form. That's the next topic.
Well, only to say,
Yeah.
we should observe what the master is saying about Narendra. That this is the young man who became Swami Vivekananda, and so his many virtues became the elements of his mission to the West. he said, I have a mission to the West, as Buddha had a mission to the East. And so Narendra was this remarkable and splendid young man who had controlled himself. Not yet totally, and was not yet beyond all doubt. But nevertheless, it is a remarkable story, the story of Narendra and the master. So it behooves us to pay attention to it. Anything else from anyone about any of that? Anything we've said or read? All right, what page are we on, dear?
Okay. Next topic, meditation on God with form. How are you getting along with your meditation nowadays? What aspect of God appeals to your mind with form or without form? Sir, now I can't fix my mind on God with form. On the other hand, I can concentrate steadily on God without form. Master, now you see that the mind cannot be fixed all of a sudden on the formless aspect of God. It is wise to think of God with form during the primary stages. Do you mean to suggest that one should meditate on clay images? Master, why clay? These images are the embodiments of consciousness. Even so, one must think of hands, feet, and the other parts of body. But again, I realize that the mind cannot be concentrated unless one meditates in the beginning on God with form. You have told me so. Well, God can easily assume different forms. May one meditate on the form of one's own mother? Master, yes, the mother should be adored. She is indeed an embodiment of Brahman. Sat in silence. After a few minutes, he asked the master, what does one feel while thinking of God without form? Isn't it possible to describe it? After some reflection, the master said, do you know what it is like? He remained silent a moment and then said a few words to M. About one's experiences at the time of the vision of God with and without form. Master, you see, one must practice spiritual discipline to understand this correctly. Suppose there are treasures in a room. If you want to see them and lay hold of them, you must take the trouble to get the key and unlock the door. After that, you must take the treasures out. But suppose the room is locked and standing outside the door, you say to yourself, here I have opened the door. Now I have broken the lock of the chest. Now I have taken out the treasure. Such brooding near the door will not enable you to achieve anything.
Mm-hmm.
You must practice discipline.
Now, this is a very important point. Many people do exactly what the master has described here. They say, well, I've done it when I've only done it in my mind. They haven't actually gotten the key. They haven't actually opened the door. They haven't actually opened the treasure box, taken out the treasure. So this is what the master is offering us. He's offering us all these keys and the ability to perform these actions. But we have to become capable of actually doing them, not just imagining them being done. Does the distinction make sense to everyone?
Sure. It sure does to me.
Our ability to fantasize, our ability to say, well, I've done that because I've imagined that I've done that, is a great impediment to our actual progress. But then it's hard to actually do things. It's easy to imagine that you've done. Anything else from anyone about anything that we read or said?
Namaste, brother. Namaste, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
The previous paragraph, which he's talking about Padmalochan or whoever that was, blowing the conch shell and the bad droppings, which he's talking about the impurities of the senses and also the mind. And then now he's talking about this mental thing which we go on, imagining without actually doing spiritual practice. And actually in the previous paragraph, he talks about spiritual practice, and now also he's talking about it. I think where I am right now, and I think the first paragraph which talked about the impurity is something very, very challenging to come across, to come over, without losing the focus. And I mean, it is tough with the way the world is so much gravitating towards, just like Sri Ramakrishna said, the water is flowing down. The mind constantly goes down, and it is even with people with in the olden times, with the exposure they had, the mind would naturally go inside. But the way so many distractions and the flow of the society and the minds of the entire nation or the world, the way it's going, it is so difficult to withdraw the mind and senses and take it inside. And that's what I think that cleaning of those bad droppings he's talking about is very difficult. That's the first part. And then the second part is obviously doing the spiritual practice. What I have, I think it's a blessing that over the period of time, I've realized that I should only focus on what is in front of me than thinking about anything else. And so what I take from this is that I should only focus on what is the impediment I have, what is the difficulty I'm facing at this moment, and I should just do that. And what is helpful to me, what is possible for me to do at this point, just to take that one step. And so that's what I try to do, which is meditation, and in whatever way I can do it. But that's all I wanted to share, is that just I don't know how many steps there are further and how long it's going to take, but just taking those small steps of spiritual practice. And I don't know, there are so many spiritual practices people do. I mean, there are in the path going forward, I being where I am, and then if you can compare with the monks and everything else. But whatever I have, I'm just doing that. And I think that is something which I would like to share, is that if you just stay focused on that one particular step I need to take, that might help. I think that helps for all of us. I mean,
Very nicely said. And of course, all true. We all have to take that first step. And when we're told we take that first step, there are various narratives, but if we take one step toward God, there's one narrative says that he will take 100 steps toward us, and another narrative that he will take 10 steps toward us. Well, I'm not sure there's any difference in how far he'll come toward us. It's just how long and how big those steps are. but the distance that he comes closer, I think, is the same. So this is very, very important to us. We must be up and doing, not waiting to be for the breeze of grace to raise our sails for us. We must raise our own sails. Then the breeze of grace can blow us forward. Anything else from anyone? All right, dear. Thank you, Shailesh, as always. And thank you, Harma.
Yeah,
Please.
I'll read this passage one more time, Brother Shankara, Master's message to us. Can I do that, these few lines?
That's it.
Master, you see, one must practice spiritual discipline to understand this correctly. Suppose there are treasures in a room. If you want to see them and lay hold of them, you must take the trouble to get the key and unlock the door. After that, you must take the treasures out. But suppose the room is locked, and standing outside the door, you say to yourself, "Here I have opened the door. Now I have broken the lock of the chest. Now I have taken out the treasure." Such brooding near the door will not enable you to achieve anything. You must practice discipline. Next topic, Brahman and divine incarnations. The jnanis think of God without form. They don't accept the divine incarnations. Praising Sri Krishna, Arjuna said, "Thou art Brahman absolute." Sri Krishna replied, "Follow me, and you will know whether or not I am Brahman absolute." So saying, Sri Krishna led Arjuna to a certain place and asked him what he saw there. "I see a huge tree," said Arjuna, "and on it I notice fruits hanging like clusters of blackberries." Then Krishna said to Arjuna, "Come nearer and you will find that these are not clusters of blackberries, but clusters of innumerable Krishnas like me hanging from the tree." In other words, divine incarnations without number appear and disappear on the tree of the absolute Brahman. Kabir Das was strongly inclined to the formless God. At the mention of Krishna's name, he would say, "Why should I worship him?" The gopis would clap their hands while he performed a monkey dance with a smile. "But I accept God with form when I'm in the company of people who believe in that ideal. And I also agree with those who believe in the formless God." I am smiling. "You are as infinite as He of whom we have been talking. Truly, no one can fathom your depth." Master, smiling, "Ha, I see you found it. Let me tell you one thing. One should follow various paths. One should practice each creed for a time. In a game of Satrancha, a piece can't reach the center square until it completes the circle. But once in the square, it can't be overtaken by any other piece." Yeah, that is true, sir. Master, there are two classes of yogis. The Bahutakas and Kutichakas. The Bahutakas roam about visiting various holy places and have not yet found peace of mind. But the Kutichakas, having visited all the sacred places, have quieted their minds. Feeling serene and peaceful, they settle down in one place and no longer move about. In that one place, they're happy. They don't feel the need of going to any sacred place. If one of them ever visits a place of pilgrimage, it's only for the purpose of new inspiration. I had to practice each religion for a time: Hinduism, Islam, Christianity. Furthermore, I followed the paths of the Saktas, Vaishnavas, and Vedantis. I realized that there is only one God toward whom all are traveling. But the paths are different. While visiting the holy places, I would sometimes suffer great agony. Once I went with Mathur to Raja Babu's drawing room in Benares. I found that they talked there only of worldly matters, money, real estate, and the like. At this, I burst into tears. I said to the Divine Mother, weeping, "Mother, where hast thou brought me? I was much better off at Dakshineshwar." In Allahabad, I noticed the same things that I saw elsewhere: the same ponds, the same grass, the same trees, the same tamarind leaves. That's the end of that particular topic. Any comments, Brother Shankara, before I move on to next topic, Master's ecstasy at Vrindavan?
We'll just notice the Catholicity of the Master. Small c, Catholicity. He accepts God with and without form. He follows the disciplines of the various Hindu spiritual paths, and he also makes an effort to realize God through Islam and through Christianity, and does so. So he comes to the conclusion that all these paths are true. And Swami Vivekananda later amplified on this idea when he said at the Parliament of World Religions, 1893, the only test of the truth of a great world spiritual tradition is, does it produce saints? If indeed it produces saints, then you know that it is true by its very nature. Anything of note, merit, or interest that needs to come from anyone else? All right, dear, please read on.
Sure. Master's ecstasy at Vrindavan. But one undoubtedly finds inspiration in a holy place. I accompanied Madhur Babu to Vrindavan. Kride and the ladies of Madhur's family were in our party. No sooner did I see the Kaliyadaman gut than a divine emotion surged up within me. I was completely overwhelmed. Kride used to bathe me there as if I were a small child. In the dusk, I would walk on the bank of the Jamuna when the cattle returned along the sandy banks from their pastures. At the very sight of those cows, the thought of Krishna would flash in my mind. I would run along like a madman crying, "Oh, where is Krishna? Where is my Krishna?" I went to Shyamakunda and Radhakunda in a palanquin and got out to visit the holy Mount Govardhan. At the very sight of the mount, I was overpowered with divine emotion and ran to the top. I lost all consciousness of the world around me. The residents of the place helped me to come down. On my way to the sacred pools of Shyamakunda and Radhakunda, when I saw the meadows, the trees, the shrubs, the birds, and the deer, I was overcome with ecstasy. My clothes became wet with tears. I said, "Oh Krishna, everything here is as it was in the olden days. You alone are absent." Seated inside the palanquin, I lost all power of speech. Hriday followed the palanquin. He had warned the bearers to be careful about me. Ganga Mai became very fond of me in Vrindavan. She was an old woman who lived all alone in a hut near the Nidhuvan. Referring to my spiritual condition and ecstasy, she said, "He is the very embodiment of Radha." She addressed me as Dulali. When with her, I used to forget my food and drink, my bath, and all thought of going home. On some days, Hide used to bring food from home and feed me. Gangamai also would serve me with food prepared by her own hands. Gangamai used to experience trances. At such times, a great crowd would come to see her. One day, in a state of ecstasy, she climbed on Hride's shoulders. I didn't want to leave her and return to Calcutta. Everything was arranged for me to stay with her. I was to eat double boiled rice, and we were to have our beds on either side of the cottage. All the arrangements had been made when Hriday said, "You have such a weak stomach. Who will look after you?" "Why," said Gangamai, "I shall look after him. I'll nurse him." As Hriday dragged me by one hand and she by the other, I remembered my mother, who was then living alone here in the Nahabat of Temple Garden. I found it impossible to stay away from her and said to Gangamai, "No, I must go. I loved the atmosphere of Vrindavan." About 11 o'clock, the master took his meal. The offerings from temple of...
Let's just pause there.
Sure, Brother Shankara.
This is the most revered and loved episode of any other incarnation of God, as seen by Sri Ramakrishna. It's called the Rasa Leela, the sweet play of God. Krishna with the gopis of Vrindavan. And this is why he was so willing to stay. And it was only the memory of his mother being alone with no one to care for her that caused him to break away and come back to Dakshineshwar. Any remarks or comments or questions about any of that? All right, as long as we're secure that we know how important this was to the master, because he will refer to it usually just by a few words or phrases later on about the Rasa Leela, about the time of Vrindavan, and his tremendous affection for Radha, and how attracted they were to one another, not in any impure sense, but in the highest, purest sense of the divine feminine, the divine masculine, being attracted toward union with one another. And according to Swami Vivekananda, this is what resulted in the birth of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was, in fact, the avatar that was born as a united divine feminine and divine masculine. So one didn't have to say Radha Krishna or Sita Ram. One just said Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and that says it all. Anything else from anyone? So we'll see that the Master refers to this episode in Vrindavan from time to time, always with great affection. And it usually brings him, his letting his awareness rest on it, usually brings him to some form of samadhi or another. All right, Drew, please read on.
About 11 o'clock, the master took his meal, the temple of Kali. After taking his noonday rest, he resumed his conversation with the devotees. Every now and then, he uttered the holy word Om or repeated the sacred names of the deities. After sunset, the evening worship was performed in the temples. Since it was the day of Vijaya, the devotees first saluted the Divine Mother and then took the dust of the Master's feet. Tuesday, October 24th, 1882, it was 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The Master was standing near the shelf where the food was kept when Balaram and M arrived from Calcutta and saluted him. Sri Ramakrishna said to them with a smile, I was going to take some sweets from the shelf, but no sooner did I put my hand on them than a lizard dropped on my body. At once I removed my hand. I'll laugh. Oh yes, one should observe all these things. You see, Rakal is ill, and my limbs ache too. Do you know what's the matter? This morning, as I was leaving my bed, I saw a certain person whom I took for Rakal. I'll laugh. Oh yes, physical features should be studied. The other day, Narendra brought one of his friends, a man with only one good eye, though the otherwise was not totally blind. I said to myself, what is this trouble that Narendra has brought with him? A certain person comes here, but I can't eat any food that he brings. He works in an office at a salary of 20 rupees and he earns another 20 by writing false bills. I can't utter a word in his presence because he tells lies. Sometimes he stays here 2 or 3 days without going to his office. Can you guess his purpose? It is that I should recommend him to someone for a job somewhere else. Balaram comes from a family of devout Vaishnavas. His father, now an old man, is a pious devotee. He has a tuft of hair on his head, a rosary of tulsi beads round his neck, and a string of beads in his hand. He devotes his time to the repetition of God's name. He owns much property in Orissa and has built temples to Radha Krishna in Kothar, Vrindavan, and other places, establishing free guest houses as well. To Balaram, a certain person came here the other day. A certain person came here the other day. I understand he is the slave of that black hag of a wife. Why is it that people do not see God? It is because of the barrier of woman and gold. How impudent he was to say to you the other day, a Paramahamsa came to my father who fed him with chicken curry. In my present of my mind, I can eat a little fish soup if it has been offered to the Divine Mother beforehand. I can't eat any meat, even if it is offered to the Divine Mother. But I taste it with the end of my finger, lest she should be angry. Laughter. Well, can you explain this state of my mind? Once I was going from Burdwan to Kamarpakur in a bullock cart when a great storm arose. Some people gathered near the cart. My companion said they were robbers. So I began to repeat the names of God, calling sometimes on Kali, sometimes on Rama, sometimes on Hanuman. What do you think of that? Was the master hinting that God is one, but is addressed differently by different sects? Master to Balaram. Maya is nothing but woman and gold. A man living in its midst gradually loses his spiritual alertness. He thinks all is well with him. The scavenger carries a tub of night soil on his head and in course of time loses his repulsion to it. One gradually acquires love of God through the practice of chanting God's name and glories. 2M. One should not be ashamed of chanting God's holy name. As the saying goes, one does not succeed so long as one has these three: shame, hatred, and fear. At Kamarpakur, they sing Kirtan very well. The devotional music is sung to the accompaniment of drums. To Balaram, have you installed any image at Vrindavan? Balaram, yes, sir. We have a grove where Krishna is worshipped. Now we are moving on to the Master and Keshav. You want me to stop here for a second, Brother Shankara? Any comments? Any purport from you?
Does anyone see any need for any comment?
I don't.
Is there anything that they're
Mm-mm.
to your remark?
Right. You're right. Yeah, I'll move on then. The Master and Keshav is the next topic. Master's boat trip with Keshav. October.
This is, in my opinion, the next 10 or so pages are probably the most important pages in this book.
Okay.
You will see why as we read on. They offer a definition of what spiritual life is and what each of the yogas is, so concisely and so practically. It is really quite remarkable. So please just
Sure.
listen up and see what Sri Ramakrishna has to say.
The Master and Keshav, October 27th, 1882. Master's boat trip with Keshav. It was Friday, the day of the Lakshmi Puja. Keshav Chandra's son had arranged a boat trip on the Ganges for Sri Ramakrishna. About 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the boat with Keshav and his Brahma followers cast anchor in the Ganges alongside the Kali temple at Dakshineshwar. The passengers saw in front of them the bathing ghat and the chandri. To their left in the temple compound stood 6 temples of Shiva, and to their right another group of 6 Shiva temples. The white steeple of the Kali temple, the treetops of the Panchavati, and the silhouette of pine trees stood high against the blue autumn sky. The gardens between the 2 Nahabats were filled with fragrant flowers, and along the bank of the Ganges were rows of flowering plants. The blue sky was reflected in the brown water of the river, the sacred Ganges, associated with the most ancient traditions of Aryan civilization. The outer world appeared soft and serene, and the hearts of the Brahmo devotees were filled with peace. Master in Samadhi. Sri Ramakrishna was in his room, talking with Vijay and Haralal. Some disciples of Keshav entered. Bowing before the master, they said to him, "Sir, the steamer has arrived. Keshav Babu has asked us to take you there." A small boat was to carry the master to the steamer. No sooner did he get into the boat than he lost outer consciousness in Samadhi. Vijay was with him. M was among the passengers. As the boat came alongside the steamer, all rushed to the railing to have a view of Sri Ramakrishna. Keshav became anxious to get him safely on board. With great difficulty, the master was brought back to consciousness of the world and taken to a cabin in the steamer. Still in an abstracted mood, he walked mechanically, leaning on a devotee for support. Keshav and the others bowed before him, but he was not aware of them. Inside the cabin, there were a few chairs and a table. He was made to sit on one of the chairs, Keshav and Vijay occupying two others. Some devotees were also seated, most of them on the floor, while many others had to stand outside. They peered eagerly through the door and windows. Sri Ramakrishna again went into deep samadhi and became totally unconscious of the outer world. As the air in the room was stuffy because of the crowd of people, Keshav opened the windows. He was embarrassed to meet Vijay, since they had differed in certain principles of the Brahmo Samaj, and Vijay had separated himself from Keshav's organization, joining another society. The Brahmo devotees looked wistfully at the master. Gradually, he came back to sense consciousness, but the divine intoxication still lingered. He said to himself in a whisper, "Mother, why have you brought me here? They are hedged around and not free. Can I free them?" Did the master find that the people assembled there were locked within the prison walls of the world? Did their helplessness make the master address these words to the Divine Mother? God dwells in devotee's heart. Next topic.
Now notice that
Yeah.
Sri Ramakrishna does not say, "What will I say to them?" But what would you have me say to them? They're hedged about. Can I say anything that will free them? So, as always, he's saying, I think as you bid me think. I speak as you have me speak. I act as you bid me act. So this is why Sri Ramakrishna now launches on what, as I said, is one of the most remarkable definitions of spiritual life and the yogas with which we practice. So give a listen. Okay, dear?
Sure. God dwells in devotee's heart. Sri Ramakrishna was gradually become conscious of the outside world. Nilmadhav of Ghazipur and a Brahmo devotee were talking about Pauhari Baba. Another Brahmo devotee said to the master, "Sir, these gentlemen visited Pauhari Baba. He lives in Ghazipur. He's a holy man like yourself." The master could hardly talk. He only smiled. The devotee continued, "The Pauhari Baba keeps your photograph in his room." Pointing to his body, the master said with a smile, "Just a pillowcase." The master continued, "But you should remember that the heart of the devotee is the abode of God. He dwells, no doubt, in all beings. But he especially manifests himself in the heart of the devotee. A landlord may at one time or another visit all parts of his estate, but people say he is generally to be found in a particular drawing room. The heart of the devotee is the drawing room of God. Attitude of jnanis and bhaktas is the next topic. He who is called Brahman by the jnanis is known as Atman by the yogis and as Bhagavan by the bhaktas. The same Brahmin is called priest when worshipping in the temple and cook when preparing a meal in the kitchen. The jnani sticking to the path of knowledge always reasons about the reality, saying not this, not this. Brahman is neither this nor that. It is neither the universe nor its living beings. Reasoning in this way, the mind becomes steady. Then it disappears and the aspirant goes into samadhi. This is the knowledge of Brahman. It is the unwavering conviction of the jnani that Brahman alone is real and the world illusory. All these names and forms are illusory, like a dream. What Brahman is cannot be described. One cannot even say that Brahman is a person. That is the opinion of the jnanis, the followers of Vedanta philosophy. But the bhaktas accept all the states of consciousness. They take the waking state to be real also. They don't think the world to be illusory, like a dream. They say that the universe is a manifestation of God's power and glory. God has created all these sky, stars, moon, sun, mountains, ocean, men, animals. They constitute His glory. He's within us in our hearts. Again, He's outside. The most advanced devotees say that He Himself has become all this, the 24 cosmic principles, the universe, and all living beings. The devotee of God wants to eat sugar, not to become sugar. All laugh. Do you know how a lover of God feels? His attitude is, O God, Thou art the master, and I am thy servant. Thou art the mother, and I am thy child. Or again, Thou art my father and mother. Thou art the whole, and I am a part. He doesn't like to say, I am Brahman. We have 2 minutes, Brother Shankara. Any comments, any purport from you?
If that's the end of that section,
That section is, that's the end. So I think
we should
up
put
there.
it there. Any comments or questions or concerns from anyone? All right, I'll just remind you that tomorrow evening we study Realizing God. On Saturday, we study and are finishing the book Divine Grace and are about to take up Swami Vivekananda's Christ the Messenger. And then on Sunday, this Sunday, we'll talk about Kalpataru Day, which is the 1st of January. And you'll understand why that topic was chosen on that day. It's a day that Sri Ramakrishna gave spiritual realization to about 30 of his householder disciples. Then the following Sunday, that is January 6th and 7th, is when Swami Satyamayananda will be with us. So, anything else from anyone? All right, dearest. Well, these have been great gatherings during this Christmas season, very full of the spirit of holy company and joyous, because it's an inherently joyous season. So may we all be well and in bright spirits. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Durga, Durga, Durga. May we be safe, may we be healthy, may we be cheerful, may we have peace of mind. And may the divine being introduced in the chant that opens these sessions as our mother and father. May we know that we are securely in that mother, father being's loving and protective embrace. So until the next time we meet, as I said, may you be well and in bright spirits. Anything else from anyone? All right, dears. A sweet good night to all.